it has to be a consumer-minded mentality, and putting your customer at the center of everything you do is kind of a non-negotiable. You can't really go that far anymore without your customer being at the center of everything, because they are at the center of everything. Like, even we as B2B SaaS, like, we build products for our customers. If our customers aren't involved in the process in everything we do, we won't succeed on their behalf.
Explore the minds and marketing strategies behind today's winning brands and businesses. Tap into the power of the creator economy with Earned by CreatorIQ. Here's Conor Begley.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Earned. Today I've got Brit Starr, the brand new CMO at CreatorIQ. Welcome to the show, Brit.
Hi, thank you. Excited to be here.
And how it has taken this long for me to get Brit on the show is shocking, because Brit and I have been working very closely together for almost a decade now.
Yep,
Closing
almost 8 years.
Yeah. So I think this CMO thing is a big deal. It's something that I think you have deserved for a long time and been working towards for a long time. And, you know, obviously we've had a long time working together. I think when you joined, we were a tiny little company, and now we're over 300 employees.
Yeah, I was 19, employee 19.
Crazy. Why don't you give people just a little bit of background on like how you joined the company and then what the journey's been like?
Yeah. I guess backing up a little bit farther than that. So my background had always been in traditional brand marketing. I worked on the agency side, client side, on a number of things, but really on great storied brands and super anchored in storytelling. And when I moved to San Francisco, I swore that I would be the only girl in San Francisco Bay Area that didn't work in tech. And that lasted all about 1 year. So I was consulting for companies, really trying to help them figure out how they could build out their internal content, decrease their reliance on agency partners, and just honestly build better scalable content and earned media opportunities. And a lot of them were asking about influencers. Cut to one random day in my apartment in San Francisco, got a cold call from you, which was really interesting, about a job that was completely wrong for me. But as anyone who knows you knows, the conversation was really compelling. You have such a contagious excitement for the space, and I was really intrigued. So we kept the conversation going and learned a little bit more about the industry. So many of the problems you were solving at the time were the questions that my clients were asking, and it was just kind of one of those moments that felt like right time, right place. And then as I got to know you and the team, right people.
Yeah, I remember when we brought you in, we had Brian Jacobs, who is our SVP of engineering. And Brian's an engineering guy, right? So he's not as outgoing. He's not a marketing guy, right? And I remember he sat next to Brit at lunch, and he was very skeptical of Brit. I don't know why, but he was like very skeptical. He was also very skeptical of me the first time he met me when John introduced us. And then after one lunch, he came out, he's like, we got to bring her on. We got to hire her.
Yeah, we talked about coffee and beer the whole time, which was great. But no, I think it also was, there wasn't a role for me at the time. And at the stage of company that we were at, it was a big role in a small company. I like to say I was one of the first like adults in the room. And coming in, I think it felt to me like, you know, big opportunity, but also a big moment for the company of like, okay, let's do this. Let's go.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about is, obviously we've been focused on this category for a long time. And I don't think in today's world, it's super common for somebody to do, 5, 8, 10 years in a single company or a single category. What is it about this category that has kept you kind of engaged and excited about it, number one? And then number two, I'm curious where you see it going, right? Because you got this new CMO title, you've got a lot to go here now.
Yeah. I like this question. I talk about it a lot with my team, with people that I interview. I think for me, what intrigued me from day one was the opportunity as a marketer to sit across the table from marketers and change the way they see the world. I think the world is fundamentally changing. It has been for a really long time, but that pace is just accelerating every year. And I love being kind of in the driver's seat as that game changes. I think it's wildly exciting. I think the conversations we get to have with each other, with our clients, are really groundbreaking in terms of the way we set our businesses and our brands up for success in the future. And that's really built around, I think, consumer connection, right? It's like, how do you connect to your customer? How do you connect in a resonant way? How do you build authenticity, trust? Like, these are things, again, since like day one as a brand marketer, we were always trying to achieve. And the vehicles and ways we're trying to achieve those have changed. And I love that. I find that incredibly exciting. Like, how do you take something like word of mouth that has always been around and actually kind of re-educate brands, marketers, businesses on the value of that and how you can do that in a way that is meaningful, but also impactful and drives growth for your business?
Yeah, I mean, I just finished an episode with Doug, and he was talking about that in a lot of ways for them, from a marketing analytics perspective, the, word of mouth was king, right?
Yeah.
How do you drive word of mouth? And in a lot of ways, the way he referred to it is this is just word of mouth amplified, right? Which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's like, we've talked about this since the beginning of our time together, but I get my sister is a stylist. She owns her own salon. She is my source for all things hair and makeup, right? My mom used to be. I remember playing with like all Estee Lauder products, right? Talk about Doug.
Yeah.
All Estee Lauder products when I was at my grandparents' house, like start to finish. My mom used that because her mom used that. Now my mom uses what we tell her. Like the cycle of recommendations change, and I think it exposes us to so many new things and new people and new communities and puts us as consumers ultimately in charge. And I find that really exciting because it holds brands really accountable to who they are, what they value, the products they bring to market, because only the strong will survive. And it's not just about big dollars and big distribution. It's really about what people love and a brand's ability to hear that and respond to that and do more of it.
Yeah, I think that's been one of my favorite parts about the kind of internet at large is just that it's now about the quality of your products, the quality of what you do, your ability to deliver on what you promise. It's like, you don't have to have the corner restaurant. You can be off the beaten path, but if you're crushing it, people will find you, right? And
yes.
I've always loved that.
Yeah, and you also, you can't get off the hook, right? Like, you have to deliver on that experience time and time again at every touch point, right? Because you have this kind of always on feedback loop that is very public. And so I really do think as brands, it's scary because it's out of our control, but it's also really exciting because we are able to build the future of our brands, our experiences, the way we tell our stories with our community at large. And that is, one, the way the world works, but also the way it should. It's like the way it should have worked a long time ago.
So while we're on the theme of this kind of cream rising to the top concept, obviously you've risen to this CMO role now, right? Like that one. So as a marketer, talking to mostly other marketers, I'd love for you to describe your own marketing philosophies, how you think about the world, why you think you were given this opportunity. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, a couple of questions in there, I guess. My marketing philosophy is ultimately to be value add. I think a lot of marketers can be very transactionally minded. If I think about, a lot of the briefs I've seen or probably even written in my career, it's all about what we need to accomplish as a business and often leaves the end customer out of it. And I think for me, it's really always starting that conversation and ending that conversation and making sure the through thread is what is the person on the other end of that conversation going to get out of it? And I think focusing everything on adding value without a guaranteed return makes the work better and it makes the work more impactful. And I think that's really special. I also think that storytelling is so important. And one of the things I've loved about this industry specifically and working at CreatorIQ is the amount of data we have to tell stories with. It makes it really powerful. And I think being able to break down stories that could be really complex in really simple ways, right? Boil it up to the headlines, like give me the 3-sentence, the 1-sentence version of this. It's hard, but it's really powerful. And so I think that's another kind of area we've really been pushing the team. And then the third is, and this is like drink our own Kool-Aid. It's like we only own our brand for so far, right? We need our community, our clients, our partners to be owners of our brand as well. And so involving them in that process and building those relationships and investing in them over time is incredibly important to helping keep and make us better, and also to grow ourselves in our industry over time.
Now I know why we get along so well. Yeah. No, but for real, I think that like you did a much better job of articulating a lot of the ways that I would have expressed my own marketing philosophies. And I think that idea of value add is something that I think a lot about. It's like every interaction I go into, whether it's meeting with a brand or it's meeting the partner or whoever, I take a moment to think about where are they at in the world? What are they trying to do? What are they trying to accomplish? How do I help them do that, right? And not start from the position of, well, this is what's important to me. How do I make sure that this gets accomplished for me, right? And like, obviously you have those goals in mind. Like I'm thinking about the corporate objectives and our own internal objectives. But I think starting with how can I help this person? How can I drive value for them? They will then naturally, essentially due to politeness, think about, well, how can I help them in return, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think for me, I think clear objectives are incredibly important and they should drive everything you do. But then it's about the approach. Okay, I know my objectives. How do I reach them? And that's where I think it has to be a consumer-minded mentality. And putting your customer at the center of everything you do is kind of a non-negotiable, and becoming even more so, again, because of that like closed feedback loop that we just talked about, right? It's like you can't really go that far anymore without your customer being at the center of everything, because they are at the center of everything. Like even we as B2B SaaS, like we build products for our customers. If our customers aren't involved in the process in everything we do, we won't succeed on their behalf.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned a little bit in terms of what areas you're pushing the team on as you look at, because I think that we've done a lot of things really well, right? We've got a lot of great content. We've got a great event series. We've got some things that go well. What are the areas that you really want to push the team on next year, in the coming years, that you think will kind of work well for us?
Yeah, first is just like doubling down again on investing in our own community, right? Who is our community? How do we involve our clients? How do we celebrate them? How do we amplify their voices? How do we build a community of thought leaders, industry leaders, people that are kind of the vanguards of our industry? Because it's all white space ahead of us. There is no one that has done this before, right? And so how do we create this groundswell of people who are pushing in the same direction to evolve our industry forward? I think that's hugely important. I also think that B2B SaaS tends to be a very like pattern matching category, and I really want to do things differently. I want to take a more kind of brand forward approach. We have a real opportunity to be a category creator, category definer. And to do that, I think brand means a lot. So again, we don't have a set path ahead of us. We're building it as we go. And as a marketing team and as marketers, marketing to marketers, like we have to break the mold a little bit. And so I'm really excited to like try new things, think a little differently, go a little bigger. And I think we've found success there in the past. Looking at this podcast is a great example, or our event series is another great example. Putting out research on a regular cadence, again, in a way that benefits our customers. So doing things differently, I think, is a really big opportunity.
So being a CMO is a notoriously difficult job, right? And I think that's evidenced in that like CMOs' tenures tend to be fairly short, right?
Gulp.
Sorry. You chose it. No, but I think, so my perspective on this, one of my views on this is that outside of the traditional things that a C-level executive has to do, manage your team, hit your numbers, do these kinds of things, CMOs often have far and away the most visible work product, right? And as we know, not everybody responds to the same ad the same, right? So, there's differing opinions. Oh, I would have chosen this font. Oh, I would have done this thing. Oh, why didn't you position it this way? Why did you use these words? It's just everybody has an opinion.
Everyone and no one is a marketer.
Right? So I'm curious, this is an odd question, but like, why do you think being a CMO is so hard? Maybe that's a good starting point. And then two, you, what do you think? I don't know how to even phrase this question. Like, how are you going to keep the job? You know what I mean? Like, in the best possible way. I think you're an amazing fit for it.
Yeah. It's a good question. I agree. I think it is a really difficult role. I think it's a really exciting role. I think companies, we've talked about this before, I think companies can be very product-led, but I think they can also be very brand-led. And what I try to do is bring the mentality in, whether it's true or not, of the organization I work for today. I consider this organization brand-led. And so I want to be the one in the room that is pushing us forward, that is making sure we're trying to look around corners, that we're pressure testing things. And I think that, yes, the work is very visible, but the expectation of being able to carry the now while figuring out the future and how we define it, how we articulate it, how we put it into practice. Like, one thing that I tell my team a lot is that we have to lead from the front. Like, we are going to be out there saying things that aren't actualized yet. And that is, again, really fun and really exciting, but puts a lot of pressure on doing both of those things, the next and the now at the same time.
Are there any CMOs in particular that you really look up to that you think do a really good job?
Increasingly, yes, but I have never been a person who has had a super set career path. Like, I, even as of last year, I mean, I turned down this role the first time it was offered to me. Not the title, but to take on the marketing team, which we can talk more about. But I think I just have never been somebody with a set path, with a kind of set bench of mentors or people that I aspire to be. I've also worked in organizations that are growing, and I think that's served me really well because I've always been able to punch above my weight a little bit in my role. But it has led to this kind of void of, again, people that I can look up to, that I can learn from, that I can emulate. But definitely in the work I do now, absolutely. Corey at Elf is everybody's favorite CMO right now. She's definitely mine. I've been following her on LinkedIn. I think the things that I really admire about her are her conviction, her excitement and enthusiasm. It's contagious. And I think bringing that level of excitement to the business that you're leading is essential. I think that she is incredibly good at making sure everything they do fits into their core values and who they are as a brand and as a business. And they're setting out to do big things, right? Like, they make great products. They've built a very successful business getting those products into the hands of their consumers. And now they're like, what's next? And so they are building their brand forward by tackling shared problems that they know their consumers face, but that they really care about as a brand too. And I love that. I think the bigness of her role is really inspirational and is something that I'm very excited about in this new role, because the permission I feel now is that I'm not just impacting the team, I'm impacting the company. And I want to think bigger. I want to be bigger in my role in that way.
Well, I think you should think even a layer above that, right? Which is, you should be impacting the industry at large.
Change
right?
the world.
Not that far, but like maybe. You never know. I think there's applications. But I think that you've talked about it a little bit, but the position that we're in is the opportunity to define the category and what it means and how big it can be. And I think that something I've thought a lot about is, within any individual organization, there's a very small number of people that have permission to be the face of that company, right? And generally, that is in areas where those businesses are perceived as being either important or excellent. So that could be Elon Musk and engineering and Tesla, right? Or Dharmesh and Brian at HubSpot, the CEO who's more of a marketer and the CTO who's more of a software person. And so I think for you, being like a company that is marketing to marketers, right, the CMO role is particularly important, or has a particularly big opportunity, is maybe the better way to say it. So yeah, I think, you have an opportunity not just to affect the company, but to affect a lot more than that.
Yeah, and I think that's what is exciting to me, 1, about this industry, 2, about this company, and 3, about this role, is that the conversations we're having, whether it's with a client, whether it's at an event, whether it's on this podcast, really are bigger than our business. And I do think that defining a category, especially again, like right now in this moment, is so exciting because I think the level of re-education that still needs to happen, especially as bigger brands, bigger organizations are realizing the undeniability of creators, as influencers, as creative supply chain. Like, it's just the opportunity is exponential. And so that re-education is really exciting and something that we have a real opportunity to get out in front of, but just get out there about. And I'm very here for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, not to preview it too much, but we're going to try and get more of your voice involved here too, which I've been asking you to do for a long time. So you're going to come on, do a little secondary hosting, I think. Is that the plan?
I think so. That's what they tell me. Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? What are you excited to dig into?
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's one, the combination of re-education, so really looking forward versus back, like what is coming, how are we preparing ourselves for that, what can be done now to pave the way for tomorrow, again, as marketers who are actually doing it today. And then the second is that so much is happening and things change so quickly that it's really nice to talk about those moments, like be more timely with what we're seeing in the world, how we're seeing things change from yesterday to today, and having a conversation with people about how they are managing that in real time, right? It's like, we're all on this wave. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So I'm excited. And I also I think similar to you, I'm so curious. Like, I love talking to people. I love learning from people. I could ask 1,000 questions in any given, 20-minute conversation. So I'm personally really excited to just get to hear people's stories and learn from them and again, shape a conversation that's hopefully valuable to all of us who are in this every day, and also those of us who are just kind of peeking behind the curtain and trying to figure out what it's all about.
Yeah, I think one of the best values I've gotten out of this whole podcast is you just get to sit down with really smart people. And if you do it right, you ask questions that you're personally curious about, right? Because if I'm personally curious about it, it means other people might be as well, right? And so it's really fun. And people are like, you get to ask questions that like might be awkward and in a different setting, right? Or like or just wouldn't be natural.
I'm terrified
right?
of the next question, by the way.
There's no scary questions. There's no scary questions. Actually, I'll start with an observation, and then you can comment on it. So one of the reasons I think that you have done well, both professionally, as well as, why I think you're going to do this role well, and why you were given this role, or given an opportunity for this role, is I think that you do a really good job of what I'll call like empathetic leadership, right? And I think that was evidenced in when you came in and kind of took on the marketing team a year ago. If you were to look at both the general kind of feeling of that team and their energy, as well as we survey people, we ask them, how they're doing, all got dramatically better fairly quickly. So I'm curious, from a leadership perspective, how do you think about leadership? Like, what does that mean to be like a good leader? And maybe what are some of the ways that you don't think you're a good leader that you think you need to get better in?
Yeah. I think of leadership as excitement and direction. I think the combination of excitement and direction leads to momentum. And I think when people feel like they're all working together on something and they have that end in sight, right? Like, there's no finish line. But I think when people are all kind of marching towards the same thing, working together, when that's clear, when you can get excited about that and give people the space and freedom to actually do their job, it gets really exciting. And so I really try to set that direction and let people go. Like, I am very convinced that I am not the smartest person on my team. I love hiring people that are smarter than me, that think more broadly than me, that think differently than me. And I think bringing those people together, again, getting them really excited about not just the work they're doing, but why they're doing it. Like, what is it for? What are we doing? How are we perceived within the organization? That's something we talk a lot about as a team, is like, I hold my team up as the standard for our company. And I think the rest of the company does too. Like, I want us to be the standard. I want us to be kind of the center of excellence for how a team should be collaborative, should lead, should be inventive, should have fun. And we do a lot of things that I think are outside the mold. Like, don't wait for permission to do something. Figure out what we need or what you need or what your team needs and make it happen. And I, as a leader, try to facilitate that. Again, if that direction is clear, if people have what they need to be successful, then it's about giving them the space and support they need to do the work. I think that's it. I think I definitely can continue to work on my level of like organization and operational skill. I think my team loves and hates my spontaneous, extemporaneous thinking. I tend to like get in the room and like dump my brain on a plate. And I'm sure that's fun for some and not so fun for others. But again, I see it all as like, we're all on the same team. Let's brainstorm. Let's figure it out. Let's throw ideas out on the table, and let's make some progress. So
I remember in the last board meeting, you said something to the effect of, well, like my team has just become like, it was like, oh, we just get a lot of requests. We got a lot of people coming to us. And Igor, who's the founder of CreatorIQ, was like, that wasn't always the case. And he's like, and that's usually a really good signal that your team's doing good work, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I love that, even when our CFO says that he chooses marketing to be like the guinea pig for things, because we're easy to work with. I mean, it's such a compliment, and we're here for it. I do think creating focus is a really difficult part of any marketing team. Again, marketing is a team that serves everyone and has both internal and external stakeholders that are equally important. The work we do for our customers as an audience is not more or of different importance than the work we do for our internal audiences, right? Like, we are here to market to our employees just like we are here to market to our customers. And so there is a ton of pull on our time and our energy. And so staying focused, making sure the team has the conviction and confidence and support they need to stay focused and like to make sure that they can filter any request or idea through the lens of what we're ultimately trying to achieve is very important. And the permission to say no and like set things aside a little bit is also something we're trying to build muscle around, is like, it's okay to say no. Like, we have a big job to do and we got to do it. And to do that, we might not be able to say yes to everything, but what we do say yes to, we're going to do all the way.
Yeah, I have a really hard time saying no, too.
Yeah.
I also tend to dump my brain on the plate. That's a good visual.
Yes, yeah.
So one of the bigger jobs you have is kind of transitioning from, two brands to one brand, right? So, and I think that's particularly challenging given that, the Tribe brand is something that had built up a lot of equity over a very long period of time with a lot of people and in very specific industries and vice versa, right? I think that like the Tribe brand didn't necessarily mean that much in the food and beverage industry like it did in the beauty and fashion industries. And this is not an uncommon challenge, particularly in software, where, acquisitions are very common, combinations are very common. So I'm curious what your experience has been like with that, what you think has worked, what you think hasn't worked, what you think's ahead.
Yep.
Yeah.
I heard this not too long ago and it stuck with me, but I think the currency of leadership is decisions. And I think that's my biggest learning on the combining of our brands and product is that decisions are so important and you're going to make wrong decisions along the way, but sitting in indecision is actually the worst decision you can make. And so I think making decisions and sticking to them and bringing everyone along with you is incredibly important. I think, too, the importance of narrative and, again, the importance of building excitement and alignment across the teams that are also coming in from two different companies' backgrounds is so important. And the way you set that tone and really translate the what you're doing and the why you're doing it to what it's going to mean for them is really important, because if everyone's not on board, it's going to fail.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's hugely important. Again, like that is very much an internal as the first audience go-to-market launch, right? Like you have to sell it internally first. So I think that's a big learning as well. And then I think, again, we talked about this earlier, but involving customers in the process that are going to have feelings about it.
Yeah.
We have users of Tribe that have been in the platform every day for their entire career for 5, 6, 7 years. And the potential of a change is scary for them. So involving them in the conversation, not making decisions, in isolation behind a curtain, or minimally not, holding that information from them is super important. Like transparency, openness, commitment, putting a roadmap out, sticking to it, making it happen. Again, that's how you maintain that trust that you've built in your, separate brands and then your brand together.
Yeah. So we'll do one fun end of show question. So if you had to not be in the software industry, if you had to be the CMO of another company or another category, where would you choose to do? What would you choose to do?
Oh man, I've been so lucky because I feel like I've always gotten to work in really fun industries like beer, music, coffee.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably go back to that. I love the beer industry. I think it's so fun. It's so challenging, so competitive. But I wouldn't go like swing for the fences big. I think I'd go, let's build a brand. Like I love the challenger. I love the champion of small. Like let's go build something and bring it to the world and do big things with it.
Cool. Well, we'll have to do that someday. Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Brit.
Yeah,
this was awesome.
You. So fun.
All right.
It only took 8 years.
Only took 8 years. There you go. Thanks.
Be a friend, tell a friend, and subscribe. Earned by CreatorIQ. CreatorIQ is your all-in-one solution to grow, manage, scale, and measure your influencer marketing program. Ready to unlock the power of the creator economy? Get started with a demo today at CreatorIQ.com.